The way that we write things tells a lot about the message we're trying to convey. For example, when we use flourishes and say something like, "You're an ugly little bugger and I never loved you" in pretty pink, there's a disconnect between what we're trying to say and the color and the font that's used to convey this message. Here's another one. What do you think about this? Do you feel that the message is really "be gentle"? Or in this one, if you look way down at the bottom right, you'll see the word kaboom. There's not a sense of a correlation between font and image. And that is what our lesson is about this week. We're going to be talking about how what you say should not only be conveyed by the words, but often needs to be conveyed by the typography that you use. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever had this experience where you have received an email and it's all in uppercase. And there's immediately a sense that the person corresponding with you is being aggressive or being loud. The reason that is because what we do is we emphasize words that are in caps. So if all the words are in caps, the idea is that all the words are being said very loudly. But what we emphasize also changes the meaning, even if the sentence is the same. For example, "I do not love you" is different to "I do not love you," or "I do not love you," or "I do not love you." So for example, in number 4, that one could perhaps mean "I don't love you, but I do like you." But in number 1, "I do not love you" is suggesting that I love somebody, it's just not you. So you can see how caps actually have quite a strong function in our understanding of the written word. You're going to do a drawing exercise that's going to go into your journal. And what I'd like you to do is grab a piece of paper. It can be a scrap piece of lined paper or whatever, but make sure that you grab a pen or pencil that makes clear marks on this paper. You're going to have to photograph this paper or scan it so that you can include it in your journal. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to draw an O. So just the first thing that comes to mind, the way you draw an O, jot it down. Now as we go along, you may want to pause as I go through, because I am not going to pause after each one. I'm going to leave that up to you. Next thing I want you to do is draw an angry O. In what way is an angry O different to your regular O's? You may want to pause it here while you do that. Try and think about what sadness might look like and how this K might have those characteristics. Moving on. A happy J. So if our K is sad, how does our J show that it is happy? Next. A scared M. Next. A surprised I. Next, a drunk S. This S went out partying and has still not recovered. What does it look like? Next, a prissy Q. If you're not sure what prissy is, look it up on Google. Next, a shy G. This G doesn't want to talk to anyone at parties. It's sitting in the corner. What does it look like? And finally, an exhausted R, which is probably how all of you feel after you've written exams and midterms and all these assignments are due. But what would an R look like if it's totally and utterly exhausted? So make sure you finish this sheet off. It's all handwritten. I'm not going to grade you on how lovely you've displayed it, but I would like to see your ideas on the characteristics of these different letters. I'm going to give you a quick little overview in text and Western art, just to give you an idea of different contexts in which text has been used within actual fine art works. So this is work by an artist called Toulouse-Lautrec, who was working at the time of the Impressionists and Post-Impressionists. And he was very much part of the nightlife. He used his drawing skills to create posters for a lot of the events that were going on in the risque clubs in Paris, for example, the Moulin Rouge. And as you can see, we use text in modern advertising as well. It's in fact much of our advertising has text, and this is a lovely example of how a letter is like a warm hug. This is a Japanese print, and as you can see on this print, there are characters at the top right and to the left. And the Chinese and Japanese actually had been putting text on their art, but it wasn't until the end of the 19th century and beginning of the 20th century that artists began putting text in their work as a norm. One of the artists that really brought the whole idea of text in art to life was Picasso. Picasso was a cubist, which means he broke up his images into these facets or shards and sort of rearranged them like a puzzle gone wild. And he's included the word jeu here. Unfortunately, I don't have a nice French accent, but it is a play on the word journal. The newspaper that was popular at the time in Paris was called Le Journal, the journal. Jeu is also a play on the word to have fun or to play. So Picasso's really having fun with us, putting these words onto this image. And in case you're wondering what this is, it's actually meant to be the top of a coffee table. Another artist who played with puns and text in art is Duchamp. Again, not being able to use a nice French accent, if you read the letters at the bottom of this Mona Lisa in French, what it says in English, if you translate it, would be, she is hot in the ass, or she has a hot ass. And what Duchamp is doing here is he's teasing the whole institution of fine arts, because Mona Lisa is one of the most famous paintings of all times. And not only is he saying that she has a hot ass, he's also creating an androgynous being out of her by putting on a mustache and a little goatee. So he's really poking fun not only at the painting but at fine art in general. Here's another pun used by René Magritte, who was a contemporary of Duchamp and Dali. And in French at the bottom it says, "This is not a pipe." In your journal, I would like you to think about what this means. Why would Magritte write, "This is not a pipe," and write a short paragraph that you put in your journal? Joseph Kosuth has created this work, which is called 1 and 3 Chairs. And the way this work is designed is that he will send a package to an art gallery, giving instructions on how to display the work. The first instruction is, find a definition for chair in the dictionary, type it out, and blow it up large. And we see this to the right. Second, find a chair somewhere in the art gallery. Finally, take a photograph of this chair, blow it up to life size, and hang it up on the wall to the left of the real chair. And the work is called 1 and 3 Chairs. And what Kosuth is trying to say is that one of these chairs is the real chair, and the other two are not. And a lot of us would think, oh well, the real chair is the chair, because the definition and the photo are not reality. But what Joseph Kosuth likes to suggest is something very different. Because as you'll see, when he sends these instructions to a different art gallery, we get a totally different chair. So what is the chair? What is the universal chair? Is it the definition, the actual chair, or the pictorial representation of the chair, which is shown in the photograph? Just think about this. Now, thinking about size, just as something in all caps seems to be yelling at us, size also has quite an important message to us. For example, the size of this font suggests that I shop and I am would perhaps be louder or more important than the word therefore. This message is put on a card that's about the same size as a credit card, and it's created by an artist who likes to create social messages discussing things such as commercialism, gender issues, racism, etc. In this work, she's being critical of the way that we often think that what we have defines us. And it's a play on a very famous saying. Do any of you know what that saying is? Lorna Simpson is an artist who also likes to put text with her work. At first glance, when you look at this image, did you think this was a male or a female? Well, if you're like me, I immediately thought it was a man on first glance because he's wearing what I traditionally see as male clothing. But Lorna Simpson has used a very feminine, soft, cursive font to write the word female. In this, she's playing with gender ideas. And she's saying that what we see on first glance is not always what is the reality. Now, another type of art with font is called a calligram. Calligram is when you take a word and you actually make a picture of what that word is from the word itself. So here's one on the left that's in Arabic, which I cannot read, but it's absolutely beautiful. And I'm going to guess that it is the word fish. I might be wrong. If anyone wants to correct me, please do and let me know what it says. But to the right, I can read, it says jellyfish, and the artist has made a jellyfish out of the word. And this is called a calligram. Words can also be created into sculptures. For example, this very popular word love has also been created in other words such as peace and other four-letter words. And here we see love on a grand scale. It's represented by the color of love, which is red, in a very graphic, tactile way. And it's put on a sidewalk so that people in the city can walk by and touch it and look at it and have their photograph taken with it. So a really fun way to play with a simple word and sculpture. Another type of typography that's extremely popular is graffiti. I often can't even read graffiti. There's many times when it's so complex that I just can't read the words. But when it is done well and the artist has talent, I find graffiti to be extremely beautiful. Graffiti artists need to understand abstract art as well as color theory, line, value, shape, balance, texture, all the visual literacy elements and principles that we discuss in week 2. And when they get it right, they create something that not only has a social message, but in itself is also extremely beautiful.